In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Etsy shop, how to create your first listing, and get you started on the path to a thriving business on Etsy. All right, so let's get started with a tutorial on how to set up your Etsy shop. To begin, you'll navigate to etsy.com/sell, S-E-L-L, or I have a link in the description box that will give you 40 free listings. If you're pretty early on to this video, it's probably still working, so let's get started. So depending on which page you're on, you're going to click the Open a Shop button. This brings up a sign in pop-up. So you're either going to sign in or register a new account here. You can enter an email address and click continue, or you can do the process where you continue with your Google account, Facebook account, or Apple account. I usually don't like to log into different apps with my main email or any of my primary items like Google, Facebook, or Apple. I just don't like those connections personally. So I always use an email address. I'm going to enter my email address here and click continue. So this is a new account. So of course it's going to want your first name and a password for your account. So I'm going to enter that now. My name is Mary and I'm going to create a password. And basically just type the password you want until it says a strong quality password. And then you're going to click the register button. So it brings you up to this welcome page, which is great. How excited they are to open up a shop. And you can look at the seller policy, some Etsy payments info, terms of service, or the privacy policy. These are all things that you're agreeing to by clicking this next button. So if you're curious about what you're actually agreeing to, definitely check those out. I'm in a ton of different Etsy seller Facebook groups, and honestly, people do not read these. There are so many questions that are clearly outlined in like the terms of service and the payments policy. So if you want to do yourself a favor, bookmark these or read them. But if you agree to all of them, you're going to click the next button that says, let's do this. So Etsy is going to ask you a bunch of questions so you can answer them if you're just starting to sell. They want to know information about you that's helping them decide what to kind of promote to you and send to you in your email. So if you have questions about what to name your shop or things like that, you can click this or you can skip to the next question. And then they are going to bring you up to the next screen where you actually start your shop and start creating listings. So here you're going to click Start Your Shop. So this brings you up to the traditional Etsy shop pages where you enter all of the backend information and preferences that actually set up your shop. So we'll go through each of these. Basically, it's going to be set to the default for where you are. The default for me is English. So the shop language options include German, Spanish, French, Italian, Polish. There's a lot of different options here for which language you're using. And this language is actually the default language that you'll use, and you cannot change it once you save it. So you can add other languages later, but you can't change it. So usually just keep that with English unless you are only serving a certain audience in a certain language. And then your shop country can be any of these. I do get a lot of questions about whether or not certain countries are included. And if it's not in this list, then no, and you cannot be an Etsy seller. I am so sorry. If your country is not listed here, then you can't sell on Etsy, but there are other options and other platforms. Check my channel for other ways to sell products online. There are plenty of other ways to sell besides just Etsy. It has a list of the most common options up here at the top. And so, of course, United States is where I'm based. And then you can choose your shop currency. And this is what they use to actually price your items on the shop. So if you're selling mainly to European buyers, you would use the euro. I am mainly a US seller, so I select the US dollar. When you're happy with that, click Save and Continue, and you'll go on to the next page. This is where you're going to name your shop. And honestly, you don't have to spend a ton of time on this because you can pick a name and then change it later. This is actually something that's really easy to change. And I do have videos on how to change your Etsy shop name. So don't spend too much time here and stress about it. Just pick something that makes sense with your brand off the top of your head. Or if you've already planned something, go with that. So the thing is, you cannot have spaces. So as you can see, I typed it with spaces. So this is not giving me a little green check mark. So I have to go back and remove those. Once I go back and remove the spaces, it does give me 2 green checks. So once you have 2 green checks here with the number of characters and then no special characters, spaces, or special letters, accented letters, then you're good to go. And it will say this name's available. If it's not available, you'll get an X. So once you have a name that's available, click save and continue. On the next page, you have create a listing. So this is something that they want you to do to start to stock your shop because, of course, generally, if you're starting a shop, you are paying a listing fee, but you also could have free listings if you used one of the links. So on this, you're going to actually enter everything you need for a listing. So on this page, you're going to actually create your first listing. Again, like naming your shop, this is something that you can go back later and delete and redo completely. You don't have to be locked into this, but to get started, you do actually have to create a listing. So we will walk through that really quickly. So you'll start with photos, and as you can see, this is required. So you do need to add listing photos. To do that, you click on add a photo. It will bring up a pop-up. So in the pop-up, you will be able to select the item that you want to open, and then you will click open, and then that will bring up the photo. So you can kind of play around with it here. You can click the little crop item to change how it appears on listings. You can select the ratio. So you can do 4:3, 3:2, 1:1, basically whatever works best for your photos and the listing. You can crop it. If you click the little pin icon, it will bring up the alt text to your image and you can describe the image. This is really helpful for accessibility reasons and also for SEO. It does impact this on external search engines. So adding some keywords and descriptions to the alt text for your image is really important. So you would just type in whatever it is to describe the listing. So in this listing, I'm going to put one of my savings challenges up. So $10,000 savings challenge, and then click save. When you're happy with the text, click save and it will update your alt text. Then you're going to scroll down. In this section, it's optional, but you can adjust the thumbnail by clicking adjust thumbnail. And then you can drag the image around and put it where you want. So you can select what actually shows in the preview of the listing. You can use a slider to make it larger or smaller and then click the save button. That just shows how it will be listed and what shoppers will see when they find your shop in your listings and searches. The next section is video, and this is for videos on product listings. These are very popular. There's no sound, so you don't actually do any talking. You don't have to put music to it. It's very simple. And the thing is, Etsy definitely likes to promote these because they found that listings with videos get way more orders. People seeing your product, seeing it in use, love that. And generally, people with listings that have videos sell way more, and Etsy promotes them more because Etsy likes to make sales too. That's how they make their money on transaction fees. So to do this, you click add a video and then select the video that you already have made and click open, and it will upload your video here. It gets it ready, and then you do have the option to click crop. I can't do that on my video because it is too small, but if you have a really large video, you will be able to crop it if needed. Then if you are unhappy with the video you selected, you can click delete and then re-upload a new one. When you scroll down, you get to listing details. This is all of the information about your product, who made it, what it is, all the keywords that will bring in people to your shop. So you are getting people ready to buy onto your product. If you have no idea how to create the right keywords and how to name your listings, I highly recommend to use a tool like Sales Samurai or eRank or something like Key Search, which does keyword research beyond just Etsy. It basically gives you ideas of what people are typing into search engines, into Google, into Etsy, into YouTube, so that you're able to use those words and put them in your title. So for my example, you'd use things like money savings challenge, money printable, savings tracker, things like that. So your title basically is all of the keywords that buyers would use to search for your items. So whatever words you think would bring in buyers, you can use those to actually improve your search and show up in search listings. So you're going to want to make sure that you're using keywords. And like I said, the tools that I listed and I will have in the description box below can help you figure out what keywords those are. You can also just use Etsy. So if you go to Etsy, you can type in things like money savings and see what pops up. So anything that auto populates in this search bar, when you have a little drop down, this is a great keyword, money savings challenge printable. There you go. You aren't going to know how many people are typing that, but you know that enough people are searching that Etsy has auto populated it into its search bar because Etsy knows that people on their site are looking for these things. So that's a cheap, free way to do it. And then there also are those low cost tools that are all less than $20 a month. If you're doing this and want to make a full time income, I definitely recommend using some sort of keyword tool. It doesn't matter which one. They're all using kind of similar types of ways to get the info, but definitely figure out a way to find the right keywords for your listings. That is very important. So that's why I spent a little bit of extra time on it. So next, under about this listing, you are going to select who made it in the dropdown. So either I did, a member of my shop, or another company or person. So you select one of these. For my items, I usually make I did because I make all of my items, and you can select either a finished product or supply. You can sell supplies and tools on Etsy. That actually is a great business, and a lot of people buy supplies off Etsy. So you can do that. And then when did you make it? If it's either made to order or made in the last couple of years, or if it's vintage, you would go down here to anywhere before 2005. Whew, I'm feeling old today. So I'm going to select made to order in my drop down. And then I am going to go down to the next section, which is category. So basically, you type a 2 or 3 word description of your item to find categories. So for my shop, I sell mostly printables and digital products. So I type in printable and see what comes up. And it's going to give you a lot of different options. So it might be templates, it might be art, digital art, it might be party supplies. It might also be something else that you can add manually by clicking this link. Let's say you're going to sell vintage clothes instead, you would type in vintage and then find what kind of clothes you're selling. So vintage dresses, for example, and then you would have some other categories that pop up like clothing, dresses. You would select what actually fits the best. But in my example, I'm going to go back to typing in printable and I will select the one that is closest to me. So sometimes you'll type in a word and maybe don't see the closest option. So you type in a different word. So I'm going to type in planner and see what I find there. So this is a little bit closer. So calendars and planners is pretty close to what I am doing. So we're going to select that just for the sake of this video. Moving on. You can choose primary colors if you're selling something that is a specific color. This is always important for clothes, jewelry, party supplies, things like that. If you're selling digital products, it's not necessarily as important. And then there is a drop down for a secondary color, optional. Also, there is the option for a drop down for occasion. If you're selling party supplies or digital or physical, which are very popular, you can select what actual occasion it's for. And that will just help with Etsy showing your product in the right times and also promoting it during those occasion times. So that is very helpful if you are designing things for like specific times of year, like Christmas items or graduation times. Basically, the more info you give Etsy, the better. So that's always good. So down here, next you have something that is required, and that is renewal options. So every listing on Etsy is going to last 4 months or until you've sold that listing or sold it out. Basically, with digital listings, you can put a huge quantity, so you might not ever sell out. But if you have one of something, you could sell out the first day if you sell it that day. So your options here are to click either automatic, and that will basically just renew the listing for 20 cents every time. That's recommended, obviously, because if it sells, you want to have that listing back out there so it can sell again. Or you can select manual and you'll renew expired listings myself. That one is a little bit harder. If you miss it, you might lose out on sales. So I always like to pick automatic. So that is what happens here. And yes, it will charge you the 20 cents when you are doing the automatic listing. But if you're making sales, you definitely want your listing to be automatically renewed each time. That also saves you a lot of time. Anything you can automate in your business is a great idea. So next is type of product. So you can either sell physical or digital items on Etsy. And this will basically just change kind of whether you have to do the shipping aspect or not. I only sell digital products. I do not sell physical products. So I'm going to select digital. And then down here in the description, you're going to want to write a brief overview of your product. If you are new, you might have to start this from scratch. If you've been selling anywhere else, you're probably going to have some level of description of your product. And then you are going to want to describe your product pretty well. And then also provide some of your specific policy information in this description, because I found that is very helpful when you have an issue with customers that you can refer back to. Hi, my listing said this is a digital product. There's no refunds on that, etc. I can't really talk and type that well, so for the sake of keeping this video relatively short, I will type in a description quickly. So I usually like to add something about what the product is, and then I will use some of the keywords that I used in my title and kind of make them into a really nice sounding paragraph. I'm going to skip that for now. Like I said, I really can't type and talk that well. And then additionally, I always, if I'm selling a digital product, I like to make sure I copy something that says it's digital. This is stuff I've already written on other products. And then I also like to make sure that they know what they will receive. So maybe something like what you will receive, that is helpful. And then also, I personally like to tell them how to get their items, how to download. If you're selling a physical product, instead of how to download, I would include info about your shipping times, your shipping policies. You're going to have that in a separate section, but it's always really good to have everything that's really, really important in the actual description so that people are sure of what they're getting. And it's just there for you to refer back to if you have an issue with customers. Then I like to include refund policy, things like that. So basically, make this section as helpful as possible when you're doing a listing. The more info you can give your customer, the better. They will appreciate it, and you will appreciate it later when it comes to any sort of issues or need to refer back to it. And then in the next section is production partners. And basically, this is anyone outside of Etsy that helps you produce items. So this is required for some types of sellers, and it's basically for anyone that's not making their products. I've had some questions on videos about this, but it does not include your own shop members, so anyone you employ, or suppliers where you source ready-made products to sell. But this is something that some shops may want to or need to do. So to add a production partner, you click add a new production partner, you put their name, where they're located, all the information about them. Then you select the drop downs of how you are working with them, and you select what they're making. And then you click save partner and you are done. And if you don't have to do that, you just scroll on by. Next, you have section. This is something that's optional. I do have videos on Etsy shop sections if you want to learn about those and how they can help your shop and how to name them, all of that. If you want to do this now when you're setting up your shop, you click add your first section, and you could do something that fits your product. So for this example, savings challenges, and click save. And so now I have that section, and I would find it in the drop down, and it is where my product listing is going to live in my shop. So next is tags. This is optional according to Etsy, but it's definitely something you should do. They do give you 13 tags to be found, so you can add things like shape, color, style, function. They give you a little idea of how to figure out tags. So who's it for? What's the main color? How did you make it? What size is it? Style is it? So things like that. If you're selling a sweater, you would say it's a cashmere sweater. It is a brown sweater. It is a tunic style sweater. So things like that. You would have a lot of different types of tags for the same item to just describe it and make sure it's things that people are searching for. So for me, maybe it's printable or planner or savings challenge. And you type these all separated by commas and then click add. And so those 3 added, which means I have 10 left, and you can and should use all 13. I highly recommend it. The next section is materials. So if you made something with resin and beads and food coloring, I don't know, this is so random. You would once again separate all the items with a comma and then click add, and it adds them. To delete any of these options, you just click the X and it removes them. After that section, you scroll down to inventory and pricing. So this is a very important section, and there are a lot of things that you probably should think about when you're pricing your items. I will link some resources on how to kind of calculate your pricing and ways to figure it out in the description box. I will say that Etsy can be a race to the bottom, and you will see sellers selling things for so much less money than it costs you even to think about your products. I mean, you just can't sell things for the amount that some people on Etsy are selling for, and they aren't really thinking of a long term business. So I would definitely look at the pricing of things on Etsy, but not necessarily price your own items based on the lowest thing you can find, because you're always going to find something lower on Etsy. You will find bundles of 200 products sold for $1. And you can't make a living doing that if you are a normal person. So, I would recommend doing pricing that makes sense for you. So maybe instead of 200 items for $1, you sell one item for $3. Etsy even says this here. It says, remember to factor in the cost of materials, labor, and other business expenses. If you offer free shipping, make sure to include the cost of shipping so it doesn't eat into your profits. You do want to be profitable. If you're starting this Etsy shop, you need to make a profit. So definitely remember that profit is important. If you are not making a profit, you don't have a business. So I highly recommend you learn about pricing and making sure that your business is profitable. Those are two things that are non-negotiable for me. So I talk about a lot. Definitely stay tuned and subscribe if you are interested in making sure that your business is profitable. But let's move on from that. The next section is quantity. This is required. You put anything from 1 to 999. Basically, if you have a digital product you can sell over and over again, you can put 999. And once it sells, it will just automatically renew until it's sold out. And you're charged the listing fee every time. If you are selling a one of a kind, there's only one in the world item, you would obviously only put one. Of course, I'm doing digital, so I usually put 999 or 99. I just kind of play around with how many times I think it'll sell, but you can do up to that number. Next is SKU. This is optional and it's an internal number. So if you use SKUs in your business, definitely put yours here. If not, then you can skip it. The next section is personalization. This is only for items that you're going to personalize. If you're going to put the name of something, or if you're going to put a number, if you're going to do something that the buyer is going to give you information to customize an item for. So you basically would give the instructions to the buyer over here, enter it here. So Etsy does give you an example, which is great. It says enter the name you want on the necklace, max 12 characters, no spaces, no special characters. Thank you. So that is basically the type of instructions you want to give your customer, and you would type it in here. So enter blah, blah, blah. And then you can click here to make personalization optional. So the buyer will see whatever you've entered over here. It'll basically say add your personalization, enter the name here, and then you enter the name. If it's optional, it will have a little optional there. And if you don't need it, hit the on off toggle up here to remove it. So now we're down to digital files, and this is basically where you're going to either have digital files or all of the shipping information. So since I do a digital shop, I have digital files, and I did select made to order above, which was not actually what I meant to do. So if you made a mistake, you can always scroll back up to your listings, click the drop down, and then change it. So I'm going to select the made recently option. And so with that, I have a digital file section here where I get to upload a file. So basically, when you upload a file on Etsy, you are attaching it to your listing, and then Etsy does everything behind the scenes to actually deliver the product. It's amazing. So click upload file. So it brings up a pop-up, and then you're going to select the file you want to use and then click open. This will automatically upload the item to your listing. So it'll look like this. It'll have the name of what you just uploaded, and then it'll have a little delete button if you want to remove it. And then if you have multiple files, you can use this little arrow over here to drag and drop them and change the order of how they are shown to your customer when they receive them. So this is great, and it's definitely something that makes Etsy and digital products go really well together. Because they make it so easy, this is why I like Etsy for digital products, even if they have a lot of flaws with the program and are maybe not the best way to make the most money with selling digital products. Down here, you're going to have your info on returns and exchanges. Because I'm doing a digital item, they already have a policy that is no returns or exchanges for digital products. It's not possible to edit that policy, but you can have buyers reach out and resolve it. If you are doing a physical product, this will look differently. I will go up and show you what it looks like if you're doing a physical product. So if you change it to a physical product, you'll get down to this area that has a little bit of a different section. So if you're doing a physical product, you will have a little bit of a different look, kind of actually the whole bottom section of your listing. So you'll obviously have shipping information where you basically either enter fixed prices or you do the calculated prices by Etsy, and then you put your zip code and then your processing time and then where you'll ship to. So United States and worldwide, or you can edit that by clicking the edit button. Then you give the option of USPS or whatever type of shipping you're going to want to do. And then you can save that as a shipping profile. Then for a physical product, you would also need to put in the weight of the item to calculate the shipping and the size of the packaging. So you would definitely need the inches of the length, width, and height of your box. So down here, when you select a physical product instead of a digital product, it does have a little bit of a different look. Basically, you can select a simple policy that Etsy has already created. They give the buyer 30 days to exchange the product or return it, or you can create your own policy by clicking over here and creating a policy. You can get started by just really quickly clicking apply simple policy, and it will just be there automatically like it was for the digital products. So I'm going to go back and select digital and make sure that I am back on my digital product. So once you have everything in your listing how you want it, at least to start, you can always edit this later. You can either click the preview button and see what it looks like or click save and continue. So here Etsy says good job on your listing, and then they ask you if you want to add more listings to get started. This is a place where you can go ahead and add more listings following what we just did, or you can click do this later and go to the next step. I'm going to move ahead to the next step since we've already entered one and that's enough to keep going. So let's do that and click do this later, which you can always do later. So here you're going to be on how you'll get paid, and Etsy is also letting me know that my account is unconfirmed because I did not confirm my email yet, but you can do that later as well. On this page, you're going to decide how you get paid, and Etsy Payments is how Etsy takes money from buyers and gives them a lot of payment options, and it also allows you to be protected as a seller. So this is important. And this page is basically how you will get paid personally from Etsy after they've taken the money from the buyers. So it gives you a level of separation from your actual buyer, which is basically why you're using Etsy in the first place. There's lots of other places online you can sell where you take money directly from customers, but Etsy gives you a little bit of protection, which is really helpful. They do set aside money for new sellers sometimes as a temporary reserve. So if you're new and you realize that you're making sales, but they're putting aside some of the money, that is normal. That is something that they do often. And they are now starting to say that they're doing it. And they are giving you an option here to click learn more about that. So just FYI, you may get paid on Etsy. If you're expecting the money immediately as soon as you get paid, that's not going to happen. They will probably put a percentage of that, even a lot of that aside as a temporary reserve just to make sure you're legit and everything is on the up and up. The first section is where's your bank located. You're going to have to put in your bank information and your personal information here. So get comfortable with that idea. It's not really something you can skip. So you select the country that you're living in from the countries that Etsy services. So I select the United States from the dropdown. And if you didn't find your country, it's because they only do Etsy payments in certain countries. They do have obviously a lot of countries, as you can see from the list, but they aren't available everywhere. Once I select the US, it means that my deposit is in the currency for my country, so United States dollar. And once this is saved, your bank account country can't be changed. So make sure that if you are someone that is international or moves between countries, you pick the country that you're going to be able to get the money out of. Otherwise, that money is going to be lost to you forever, basically. And then in the next section, for tax purposes, they want to know what kind of seller you are, individual or a business. If you're a business, you're going to be something like an LLC. Most people on Etsy are an individual seller. They are starting as a sole proprietorship, specifically in the US. If you're in another country, it might be called something different, but basically whatever a single individual is to sell items. So here you're basically going to enter your country, your name, your last name, date of birth, social security number for the US. It'll be something else for every other country. This is legally required. I get a lot of questions on if you can skip that. You cannot. You need to enter it. Then you need to enter your taxpayer name and address. So I'm going to enter all of that. You're not going to see it because, of course, this is a privacy section that you don't want anyone to see. So once I'm done with this, we'll move on to the next section, but I am going to enter that. so that my shop is legit because you kind of have to. After the section about your details, about your personal information, you will have this little section that's about places you've lived. So if you spend any time in Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, etc., you are going to have to say yes or no. If it's yes, they will have to do some verification that you're living somewhere else now. So if it's no, then you won't have to worry about it. But they do have a sanctions policy if you want to read more about that. So in the final section, you'll have your bank information, and this is where you connect your bank via Plaid to Etsy so that they can pay you. This is secure. It is something that thousands of companies use. So if you've used anything online, it's going to be Plaid, and then it will bring up a little pop-up so that you can continue. So basically you click continue, and then you either do instant verification or manual. If you do instant, it's going to take you to continue, and then you basically find your bank on the list, whatever it is, and then follow the steps there. So you can select any bank that you use, and then it's going to ask you to log in at that account and select the info that it gives you. So you click continue to log in, and it brings up another pop-up in a different window. So in that pop-up, you would basically just enter your information, sign in. And once you sign in, it's going to bring up a screen kind of like this that says Etsy would like to access your account information, and you control which accounts they have access to, and it's ongoing until you stop it. It gives you all the information. And if you want to do that, you click continue, and then you have the option to share what information Etsy gets, click continue, and then select the bank account that you want to share and click continue. And then you can click on the final screen, authorize. Then it will redirect and take you back to Etsy. So Plaid is going to finish up that secure connection so that Etsy is connected to your bank account and they can send you payments directly. This is something that you need to do if you want to get paid. Once it's done, it's going to say your bank account has been connected via Plaid. So once this is done, click save and continue to move on to the next. Now, if you've gotten to this page for setting up your billing information and you haven't yet confirmed your email address, it's going to make you do that now. So there will be a pop-up that says, please confirm your email address, and you can either resend the confirmation email or just go check and see if you got it by that point in signing up. It does take a few minutes, so it won't be there when you first start, but by this point you should get it. So I'm going to pull up my email, and I can see here that it has the nice little confirm account email. So I'm going to click that. And after I click that, it says, welcome to Etsy, and we are ready to go. So I'm going to go back over to this page. I opened that in a new tab, and now when I'm on this page, it's not letting me do anything. So I'm going to refresh the page, and it does bring up the same page, but without that little pop-up now, and it does give me all of the options to set up billing. So basically, this is all the information of how you're going to pay Etsy, that 20 cents for each listing, and then from there, any of the fees. So they do have how do fees work over here on the side, so you can click the little drop down, and it'll show you the listing fees, 20%, and then the transaction fees, 6.5% of the order total. This is higher than it used to be. And then the payment processing fee, 3% of the order total, including tax and shipping, plus 25 cents for each sale. So fees are definitely higher on Etsy than they used to be when I first started on Etsy and started making videos and started making sales. It's definitely a lot higher these days. So there are options to reduce that, like sharing a link to your shop and sending traffic there, things like that. But just so you know, there is a little info on how fees work when you start, and then you need to set up your billing. So to pay your Etsy bill, you're going to have to add a credit card. They do say you can add a debit card as well. Some people do seem to have issues with this, but you basically enter your card number, choose the expiration date and the year. Then you put in your CCV, which is the code on the back, and then the name on the card. Then you go down to the billing address, and you're going to have to enter your address where that credit card is linked to. So you're going to enter your country, your street address, your zip code, your city, your state, and then also your phone number. So once you have all of this information ready, you're going to click save and continue to move on. So then you're going to get to shop security situation. And this is basically to keep your shop safe so that you are not having people access your account, steal your account, take your information, charge up a bunch of money, things like that, because Etsy does have your billing information. They obviously just got your credit card and put it into their system. So you want to keep people out of your account. So basically you can put two factor authentication onto your account, and you have options to either do text message, phone call codes, or Authenticator app. The Authenticator app is the most secure option, and that's what I always like to do. And basically, for this one, you click the Authenticator app and then you click continue. If you don't have the Authenticator app, you can get it by downloading from the App Store or Google Play. I personally use Google Authenticator, and that is also what Etsy is recommending here. So, Google Authenticator, it is probably the best option for any sort of two-factor authentication, and it lives on your phone, which is really helpful. And you can always just be logged in and ready to use this, and it's a little bit more secure than getting codes sent over text message or having a phone call. So basically on this page, you click continue. So to do this on your phone, you basically open up the Google Authenticator, you click the plus sign to add a new code, you click the scan a QR code, and then you line it up with your computer and scan the code. That will automatically add Etsy to your Authenticator app. So now you see a code for the app. You can also enter the key in your app, which is right here. You can copy and do that. I just find the QR codes a lot easier. It instantly does it. And then it adds a 6-digit code from your app. So then in your Authenticator app, you'll see Etsy and you will have a 6-digit code. So you will enter that into this little area here and click continue. So that sets up the two-factor authentication in the app, and then you can turn it off at any time in your security settings, but it also gives you some backup codes so that if you ever have an issue with two-factor authentication, if you lose your phone, if you just can never ever get back into your Authenticator app, you do have options, and you only see these once, so they are very important to save into a safe place. So you could save to your device by clicking the button and you will download them, or you can copy the codes and put them somewhere safe that you keep all of your important information. But just be aware that the backup codes can come in handy if you're ever having an issue with someone hacking your account and you want to get it back. That is important to save. Save that, make sure you save it. And then the final step is to click open your shop, and you are going to have your Etsy shop open and ready to go. After this, then there will be a ton of work. This is just the very, very, very first step, but you're on your way. After you finish setting up your shop, you will immediately be sent to your dashboard, which is the main page that you go to in your shop manager. And it will have this handy little guide of tips to get started to make your first sale. And it has all sorts of things that you can click on and learn more from these education experts on Etsy. So there is below that all your stats, and then there'll be a checklist of things you need to do, which when you first sign up, there's nothing. And then you'll have listings, and you can also go to view all listings or go over here to the side, and then you will work on your listings and adding more. So once you click on listings in the side menu, that is where you will go and you can start adding listings. So you're going to want to add a listing. As you can see, I use my link. So I got free 40 items. So I have 39 left, which is fantastic. So we would go click on add a listing. So after we click add a listing, we're going to go through a very similar process to what we did when we set up our shop, but they do it a little bit differently in this section. Basically, you're going to do the same kind of questions: what type of item is, physical or digital, whether you made it, if it's a finished product or a supply or tool, when you made it, which of course is either made to order or recently, and then click continue. And then it brings you up to the listing screen, which looks a little different from how we went through it in the beginning, but it has all of the same items. So it has that about section with the title, the photos, the digital file, if it's a digital file, the description, and then personalization. And then next it has price and inventory. So you can set the price and the quantity, which we did originally. Then it has variations. If you have physical items, this is where variations would be. So you would be putting in the different types of colors and things like that. Then the details for a digital item, you basically already have this set, and then you choose the category. Then you can also add your tags and materials, which is obviously very important for Etsy SEO. And if you have a physical product, it is really important to know what the item is made of, because buyers actually really value that and want to know. And then, of course, if you're doing physical items, you have the shipping section. And then they have at the bottom the settings. So you have your return and exchange policy and anything that you need to let the buyers know about for policy wise. and then you can add it to the shop section. So like we added before, we have the savings challenges section, and then you can also add a new section. And then something that wasn't in that original listing is feature this listing. So you can toggle on or off if you want this listing to be featured at the top of your page, the top of your shop, to make it kind of stand out and be important. If you think it's going to be one of your best sellers, maybe prioritize this. If you're going to have 10 listings, but this is the one that you know is going to sell the most, you could definitely feature it by clicking the little toggle. And if it's not one you want to feature, you just turn it off. And then at the bottom is renewal options for automatic or manual. And then once you're ready, you can preview it, save it as a draft, and come back to it later, or click publish and add a new listing to your shop. So those are the very first things you'll be doing with your shop. And of course, you are ready to go from here. You can get sales on that first listing that you made. And as you add more listings, you're going to show up more often. Remember that more listings means more chances to be seen by buyers. So Etsy is definitely on some level tends to be a numbers game. You either need to have a very unique product, a very strong audience already coming onto Etsy, or you need to go for more listings. There are different strategies on how to attack Etsy, but the very common one is just more listings and more volume. So whether you are sending the traffic or you're trying to get more people to your listings via SEO by having multiple listings, there are many strategies for how to make sales on Etsy, and you really need to pick one and go with that and then try it out and adjust from there. I hope this was helpful. I do have a lot of other videos on Etsy, how to succeed on Etsy, how to make sales on Etsy, and I will be doing some new content on that as well. And if you are a digital product seller, definitely subscribe, because that is one of the topics that I talk about the most, because it's been my favorite income stream as a full-time creator. And I love talking about how to make digital product sales, how to make products, and how to make it a larger percentage of your income so that it can support you with your online endeavors. If you are planning to start this Etsy shop and make it a income for you, hopefully a full-time income for you, I would recommend taking this seriously and setting up your business in a way that is profitable and also makes sense when tax time comes around, because you will have to pay money on your earnings. So I highly recommend you check out this next video and the resources in the comments on how to make your business legitimate and make sure that you are doing everything you need to make this a success. I wish you the best of luck, and definitely check out that next video.